It was a movie about a shark terrorizing swimmers and no, I'm not ever swimming again, goddammit. Not even taking a bath. Not even having a shower just in case they have little mini sharks. Anyway, this is a movie that blew up bigger than an allergic warthog. It redefined the summer blockbuster and generally soiled underpants the world over. Jaws.
Which I wanted to prove today by cutting the shark open, but you want to let that breathe for nothing.
Writer Peter Benchley had written a book about a shark snacking on people around the fictitious seaside town of Amity, which of course means friendship, but in the language of the sharks, Amity translates to all-you-can-eat buffet. The novel was first published in early 1974 and was an instant bestseller, which caught the eye of Hollywood producers Richard Zanuck and David Brown, who quickly snapped up the rights. Various directors were approached about making a Jaws movie, and the producers hired someone they thought they could work with. Their original choice for a director proceeded to talk about how he saw this as a film about a whale, and so he was quickly fired in favour of somebody who was not as clueless as a concussed bungee jumper who had lied about his height. Steven Spielberg was in his mid-20s and had just directed his first film for Zanuck and Brown, Sugarland Express, a film that, like me in high school English, didn't do too good in stuff like and everything like that and stuff. The producers had approached Spielberg about directing Jaws before the release of Sugarland Express. Spielberg was hesitant, since Jaws felt too much like his early 70s television movie Duel, where a killer truck torments a motorist. I mean, they may seem a little similar superficially, but they seem different enough to me. I mean, I could see an issue if the shark was driving the truck, but without thumbs, how does it turn on the ignition?
You don't go in the water at all, do you?
Some bad hat, Harry.
Spielberg joined the movie and set about working with various scriptwriters, including Benchley, Howard Sackler, and finally Carl Gottlieb, who'd also appear in the film. Jaws begins with a skinny dipping chick being mistaken for chicken wings and dipping sauce by a big something, probably a shark. Unless, of course, there are some really big man-eating spiders lurking in Amity. Police Chief Martin Brody wants to close Amity's beaches just before the 4th of July weekend, but the mayor doesn't want a minor thing like, protecting public safety from getting in the way of valuable tourism dollars that could be used to fund potential negligence lawsuits in the future.
You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
More deaths occur, including a young child. When a bounty is posted by the kid's mother, dozens of wannabe shark hunters fill the local waterways.
Doesn't make much sense for a guy who hates the water to live on an island either.
It's only an island if you look at it from the water.
Shark expert Matt Hooper strikes up a rapport with Brody, and they team up with the local shark hunter, Quint, to hunt down the killer great white. A great white shark doesn't do too much other than eat and swim and breed, though I'm fairly certain those are fairly popular hobbies for a lot of non-sharks.
Do whatever you have to make them safe, but those beaches will be open for this weekend.
Jaws is an utterly brilliant concoction. Steven Spielberg was just hitting his stride as a filmmaker, and when Jaws was released in the summer of 1975, the film quickly became the highest-grossing movie of all time, overtaking the previous record holder, The Godfather. But backing up a bit, the actual production of Jaws is what's known as a cluster shark. Bloody autocorrect. The original plan was to quickly ramp up production so that principal photography would be completed ahead of a possible strike in mid-1974.
He is in a boat. He's not going to go in the water. I don't think he'll ever go in the water again after what happened yesterday.
A planned 55-day filming schedule with a $3.5 million budget was at best wildly optimistic, at worst ridiculous, like my recipe for healthier chocolate chip cookies that swaps out the chocolate chips with cabbage.
Michael! Did you hear your father? Out of the water now!
Spielberg and company would set up shop on Martha's Vineyard off of Cape Cod, though of course history does not record whether Martha had ever shared a glass of wine with a cape-wearing cod.
I don't think that's funny at all.
The main reason for shooting there was not because of the picture postcard town, but because the production could head out to sea and still have a relatively shallow sandy bottom. A sandy bottom does sound like something that might require some sort of lotion, but for people making a movie about a shark, a sandy bottom would prove very handy, particularly if you have an apparatus that has a habit of breaking down or sinking. Jaws, of course, used a mechanical shark, nicknamed Bruce. Bruce proved to be temperamental, was never ready when cameras were ready to roll, and often just stopped working. Bruce did have a worse work ethic than a trust fund kid who wants to be a DJ.
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit.
The shark in the final film is rarely seen, and for one part of the movie, its motion is implied by barrels. Quint and his crew attached barrels to the shark, mainly because it was a lot easier to get the barrels to do what you wanted.
Drink to your leg.
I'll drink to your leg.
The effects crew built a series of mechanical bruisers that they'd attach to a crane and run it along a rail on the sandy bottom. In theory, the mechanical sharks could go up, they could go down, they could pivot and eat on command. There was a shark designed to go left to right and another to go right to left. The sharks were all singing and all dancing.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Unfortunately, they didn't really work, where they tended to break down, sink, and generally behave stroppier than a travel influencer who's just been given the bill from a luxury hotel. Real sharks were filmed by shark legends Ron and Valerie Taylor in Australia, with a real shark attacking a scaled-down shark cage with a little person doubling for Hooper. And, of course, their boat was called the Skippy. The real sharks are much more dynamic than the mechanical sharks, and real sharks were also cheaper since they worked for scale.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons on them.
It's mostly hinted at before we see it in all its glory towards the very end of the film. There are 1 or 2 shots where the shark looks faker than a tan on a librarian. But the upshot was it forced Spielberg and company to pare back shots of the manky mechanical monster to an absolute bare minimum. Instead, we have music and the power of suggestion to imply the monster's presence. It's a bit like when you go to Comic-Con, where you can just put on noise-cancelling headphones and close your eyes in the middle of Hall H and be instantly aware that you're in the presence of fans.
Smile, you son of a...
Spielberg had quite the time trying to cast his leads. People were just not interested in playing second fiddle to a shark. Roy Scheider would give a career-defining performance as Martin Brody, a guy who just wanted a quieter life after being a New York cop. Obviously though, having a killer shark on the loose isn't quite the sea change that he would have had in mind. That's perhaps a little like the pros and cons of taking up golf for fun and exercise. But then you discover the horrible downside, where you need to deal with people who really, really like golf.
What we are dealing with here is a perfect engine, an eating machine.
Richard Dreyfuss saw the script and initially did not want to do the movie, as he apparently could see what a shitstorm the production would become, but he did eventually take the role of Hooper. Hooper is a rich kid who, rather than spend his trust fund on DJ equipment, researches sharks. Now that's the sort of thing you had to do before Shark Week on Discovery Channel turned every week into Shark Goddamn Week.
You rich?
Yeah.
Yeah, how much? Well, personally or the whole family?
Hooper's the guy with the answers that nobody but Brody wants to listen to.
Don't have to take this abuse much longer.
And then there's the fisherman, Quint. Robert Shaw brought with him a competitive intensity to the project. He could be hard work to act with in the same scene, but it was worth it. Quint is an old, salty dog who hunts shark for fun and revenge. Truth be told, he's an obnoxious asshole for most of the film. Though, have you ever met a nice asshole?
At home, we got a taxidermy man. He gonna have a heart attack when he sees what I brought him.
The 3 men bond over drinks, which lets them work together as a team by the end of the film. Robert Shaw worked with writers to craft Quint's famous anecdote about surviving the USS Indianapolis.
So 1,100 men went in the war. 316 men come out, the sharks took the rest.
Lorraine Gary was Ellen Brody, watching with a mixture of curiosity and horror at what her husband was dealing with.
What am I going to tell the kids?
Tell them I'm going fishing.
Gary happened to be married to Universal's head guy, Sid Sheinberg, who, if I may go off on a tangent for a moment, is a good example of how a studio executive can be a hero in one story and a villain in another. Sheinberg was an enthusiastic booster of Steven Spielberg's career, yet he's also the guy who tried to sue Nintendo over the name Donkey Kong, where he boasted how he saw litigation as a profit center. And of course he was also at loggerheads with Terry Gilliam over the movie Brazil.
We're really a little anxious that you're rushing into something serious here.
Also of note is Murray Hamilton as the mayor, an elected official downplaying a deadly public safety crisis by hoping the deaths were just caused by an overzealous haddock. Keeping people alive? That's just too hard. Spielberg's films were often cast well, and Jaws is absolutely brilliant in this regard. There is some authentic local colour by putting residents of Martha's Vineyard in small roles, as well as having small roles for crew members here and there.
I don't think you appreciate the gut reaction people have to these things.
And then there was this. Jaws' simple theme tune made up for any shortcomings in the prop shark, becoming pretty much the most famous monster theme of all time. John Williams, who before Jaws was perhaps best known for his work for Irwin Allen, Steven Spielberg wasn't initially sold on this super simple tune, you could play the Jaws theme fast, or you could play it slow, and it would become the quickest way to change the colour of any body of water, so long as you wanted it brown.
Jaws. See it before you go swimming.
Jaws is a masterclass of making a film horrific without being too graphic, scary without assaulting you with blood and gore for 2 hours. It hints at what's happening without having to show you a mechanical shark that worked as intended only about 5% of the time, much like a Windows update. It's the sort of film whose pop culture impact is hard to overstate. Parodies of Jaws are legion. Spielberg himself would reference it in his terrible comedy 1941, plus it would show up in other films and television.
Shark still looks fake.
Even before Jaws, there had been a strand of horror-based movies of nature getting revenge on man. But after Jaws, there was a slew of water-based imitators: Piranha, Killerfish, Orca, SpongeBob SquarePants. Some of those associated with the movie Jaws have expressed some regret at how sharks were demonized, going from something that just had to be a bit feared when you went for a swim into something that needed to be actively destroyed.
But as you see, it's a beautiful day, the beaches are open, and people are having a wonderful time.
Jaws, of course, did spawn a few sequels, but that's something for another video. Jaws was and is a magnificent movie filled with thrills and tension, an excellent cast, score and direction. It's iconic and quotable for all the right reasons. You might just never go for a swim again. But trust me, I've done some research on this. Showers are safe.
I don't think that's funny at all.
If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.
Oh.